Hello and welcome to the Rift. I'm Cosmic Rift, and today I kind of wanted to show my mill deck. I'm a returning player myself. I kind of stopped playing back when XYZs were a thing. I played during XYZs, but after that I took a break, and Master Duel's kind of been bringing me back into playing. So I kind of wanted to give some little tips/advice on how the mill deck works, or different combos you could possibly do. So if you're interested, sit back and enjoy. So let's go over how my mill deck works. I run 2 needleworms, which are basic. Just send the top 5 cards from your opponent deck to the graveyard. Then I run 1 morphing jar because you can only run 1. Both players discard as many cards as possible from their hands, then each player draws 5 cards. So the best thing that I love about this card is, say you have cards you really want to keep and you don't want to discard them, you can literally have an empty hand and discard nothing, but still gain the effect of drawing 5 cards, so you could get a new hand. So I'm a big fan of that card, but the big staple in this deck that I try to get off quite frequently is getting Morphing Jar number 2 out. Main reason why is because it sends back all the cards from the field, just monsters though, that go back into the deck. They get shuffled in, and then you just keep milling your deck and your opponent's deck until you run across the same amount of numbers of monsters that you shuffled into your deck. And if they're level 4 or lower, you can actually special summon them in face down defense position, and they go back onto your field. But the con is you can go through your deck quite fast, because I've had this happen to me where it caused me to, in a sense, get to where I accidentally milled myself out and lost the duel. So you just kind of want to be careful how you play some of these, because the mill deck can burn yourself. And then next I run 2 Necroface, which I like a lot, but like I said, it can burn you if you're not too careful, because how this card works, if it is banished, each player must banish 5 cards from the top of their deck to the banished zone. So what I like to run Necroface with is either a gold sarcophagus. Sorry if I just butchered that. I kind of did just wake up. But I like to use this one because it gives 2 good effects of, once it's been put into the banish zone, then it affects triggers, and then 2 more turns it comes back. So then I can either use it as a defense mechanism, or I can use it to discard a card through Dark World dealings and draw a new card. And 2 other cards that I kind of run when I run this Necroface is, I like running Soul Release. I sometimes run up to 3, but right now I'm only running 2 of them because it lets me target up to 5 cards in either player's graveyard and banish them. So I could banish these ones and get 10 mil off of their deck, or I can either, if I notice they are special summoning from their graveyard quite frequently, which is kind of common now these days, you can shut that down with banishing their monsters. But I also like to run card destruction. Normally if I run card destruction, I try to wait till they have a full hand, just so then it kind of gets rid of more of their useful cards that may cause me any issues. But I also, if I can't have them have a full hand but I have present card, I will activate present card first because it discards their hand, and then they draw 5 new cards, and then from those 5 new cards activate card destruction and get 10 cards out of their hands. So it's another way of milling out your opponent. I also run the Shallow Grave for the main reason of, it's basically a Monster Reborn, but it is so much better than a Monster Reborn in a mill deck, because it makes you special summon that monster from face down defense. So if any of these are in the grave, I can set them back down face down and possibly reuse their effect, as long as no one pops them. I like to run 2 Cup of Ace, just for the fact it either lets me draw 2 cards, which will be useful of picking out cards that will be better for me, or it makes them draw 2 cards, so it helps kind of mill out their deck a little bit more, but still give me the benefit of being able to get 2 more cards in my hand. Then I run 1 Pot of Duality, which just activates the top 3 cards, and I just pick one of those and add them to my hand, which comes in handy. I also run 1 Day of Peace, which is very useful to help you kind of stall out if you don't have anything to defend yourself. It allows both players to draw 1 card, and then neither one takes damage until the opponent's next turn, so kind of just a little safe point. I currently run 2 Gravekeeper Servants. How I kind of play the deck, I don't get to use this often because I try to keep them from attacking, but if they do attack, it does require them to discard 1 card from the top of their deck to the graveyard. And because normally how I would play is, if I can absorb the damage, I will let them honestly attack me, even if I have a way to cancel it or negate it. I would allow them to attack me as long as it doesn't kill me, especially if I have this on the field, because then it just makes them mill out their deck a little more. And then it just kind of helps remove some more cards for free without having to, if you don't have any other way right now, which at times it does come in handy, but I haven't got to use it too much yet. Then I just have Scapegoat just as another precaution to help defend me if I have no other way of defense. I love Book of Eclipse because if I have any of these faced up, its effect makes all cards on the field go to face down defense, and at the end of the turn, if my opponent has 3 or 5 cards that have been face down by this card effect, they flip them all face back up, and then your opponent draws for how many cards they flipped up. It only works on your opponent's cards to get flipped up, just not yours, but it does at least help set your cards back up if you want to use their effects again. I tend to only use this effect though when they go to battle me, just because if the card was already placed down a turn before and you use this on their main phase, it causes them to be able to flip it back up and kind of just erase the fact of them being able to draw a card next turn, at the end of their turn, I'm sorry. So I tend to normally do it during the battle phase. Now if they go into their main phase too, certain cards they should be able to flip up and negate the draw effect, but most of the time at that point they just end the battle phase and draw the cards to get the effect of drawing a card. But I run 2 of those in my deck, and then I run 1 Draw Muscle, which targets 1 defense position once I control with 1,000 or less defense, which is literally any of my cards. And on this turn they can't be destroyed by battle, so it kind of just saves you for 1 more turn and lets you draw a card out. I've only got to use it once, but it came in handy. I run 3, I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name because I know I'm going to butcher it, but Wabuku. I probably butchered that to hell and I apologize. But I run 3 of these because it keeps me from taking any battle damage for at least 3 turns with me running 3 of them. And the benefit is it keeps my monsters from being destroyed, so if they have a lot of monsters on their field and I have Morphing Jar, the one con is if he gets attacked and destroyed, which is very common in this style of Yu-Gi-Oh where everything's such heavy hitters. If he gets destroyed, it causes them to mill their deck, but it doesn't let me get another monster on the field because it gets destroyed rather than get sent back to my graveyard. So one combo I do sometimes is I activate my trap card, oh not that card, a trap card, so then that way it triggers his effect and allows him to go back into the deck and lessen the amount of cards that I have, but also bring out another monster. So then that either lets me replay this effect or get another card out here. But it's a good stall card. I also run Threatening Roar just so that they can attack for another 2 turns. I possibly am going to add an extra one in there just because I like to stall out from letting them attack, because then that lets me be able to make combos how I please. I also run Desert Sunlight. This card is really good for if you don't, this card is really good for is flipping your faced up monsters from face up defense, so it causes their flip effect. So like Morphing Jar, if they, instead of having them attack, you can use this, flip it up, and get the effect going and cycling out to new cards. But it's a good way to, if you already had that set, you can set one monster, flip it, cause it to go, and keep on moving. Already explained present card. It's just good 5 cards to mill out. I run Boo Boo Game just because it does at least negate 1 attack. And then if the opponent destroys this card while it's set face down, it allows me to target 2 normal trap cards and set them face down on the field, but can also be activated right then and there. So that means I can either get these 2 out, activate one of those, grab one of these. So it kind of gives me different little options and variants to do. Then I run 2 Dark Bribes. I run 2 Dark Bribes, and they're good for negating attacks. Not attacks, negating spells and trap cards, and it requires them to draw a card. So they kind of get a benefit out of it, but it helps also mill out their deck just a little bit more. And so I want to also give you some other cards that might work with this deck that I've that I haven't used personally, or just haven't got the chance to really run them in the deck, which is 2 of them right here. All Out Attack is really good for if you want to possibly do an infinite loop with Morphing Jar number 2, because when they special summon the monsters, it automatically flips them face up attack position, what then triggers their effect. So you either can get a free mill, or you can keep shuffling and causing them to possibly mill out by having Morphing Jar and making them go through their deck. Or if you have 2 monsters on the field, then you have a possibility of getting 2 different effects. So you can either mill out by using Needleworm, or mill them out by using Morphing Jar. But be careful, because if Morphing Jar is on the field and you have no more cards in your deck because of doing this, you can cause yourself to lose, because I've done that myself. Just once though, but it still happened. Greed is also a good one to run with these type of decks. If you want another way to possibly win without having to just mill out their deck, because each time they draw a card, because of a card effect, they take 500 damage during the end phase for each card that was drawn, which is super powerful, because literally all you have to do is, if they're only at 8,000 life points, you literally just have to make them draw 16 cards and you kill them. Then there's also, if you want to do this style effect, I would also recommend another card. Let's see if I have it real quick. I don't remember what it's called, but if I see it, I know it. I can't seem to find it, but there is a trap card that makes your opponent shuffle their entire hand and redraw, so that's another 5 more draws to get some more damage off on them. But it's a good card. That's if you want to do that. I also kind of want to get the Grand Horn of Heaven, just because with the World of Everything being special summon, it negates it, and then it just allows them to draw a card because of the negate, which I think would be super powerful. I just really don't have enough ultra rares to make it. I'm kind of just waiting. But yeah, this is my mill deck. My extra deck doesn't really matter. I just have it there just because why not? But yeah, if you have any suggestions or any advice of a card that you might think might work really well with this deck, drop it down in the comments and I'll be glad to check it out and possibly try to add it. But yeah, this is my mill deck. I hope you enjoyed.